Chloe, let's go to Serenity Temple again. Making the first offering of the year brings the best luck. Mia's voice, syrupy sweet, melted in my ear. She was wearing an expensive lace face mask, with only her sparkling eyes visible, and she was shaking my arm enthusiastically. The dorm room was filled with the rich, almost aggressive scent of her new, unidentifiable perfume. It was those eyes, that smiling face, that voice. In an instant, the world spun. The white walls and ceiling of the dorm room twisted and peeled away, transforming into the hopeless, stark white of a hospital. The scent of antiseptic stung my nose, so cold and sharp it felt like it was freezing my soul. I could feel myself lying weakly in a hospital bed. Every breath pulled at my lungs, bringing on a fit of gut-wrenching coughs. A familiar metallic sweetness welled up in my throat. The blood I coughed up stained the snow-white pillowcase, like a grim flower blooming in the snow. The old TV in the corner of the ward was broadcasting our university's graduation ceremony. In the spotlight, Mia, as the valedictorian, spoke eloquently at the podium before a captive audience. She wore a tailored cap and gown, her makeup was perfect, her smile was radiant, and she radiated the glow of success. She said she wanted to thank her alma mater, her professors, and everyone who had supported her. But my eyes were fixed on her pale neck. Around it hung a small red satin sachet, a tiny lotus flower embroidered at the opening with gold thread. I had woven that sachet with my own hands. The ashes inside were from the first offering at Serenity Temple, the ones I had knelt on a cold prayer cushion to painstakingly gather for myself. I once thought that was the beginning of my bright future, but from that day on, my life plunged into an endless abyss. My grades plummeted, my health inexplicably failed, and in the end, I had to drop out on medical leave. Lying in this cheap hospital room, surviving on my parents' meager savings, I held on by a thread until the last flicker of my life went out. And her, Mia, my once best friend, had stepped on my luck and skyrocketed to success, living a glamorous life. Chloe, what are you thinking about? Mia's hand waved in front of my face, pulling me back from that cold, desperate memory. The scene before me refocused. She still had that same innocent act, her eyes overflowing with what looked like concern. I was back in my junior year, the year before all the tragedy began. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from fear, but from a lifetime of suppressed, boiling hatred and excitement. I forced myself to take a deep breath, pushing down the scream that was about to rip from my throat, and slowly let a smile bloom on my face, the same gentle, harmless smile from my past life. Okay, I said, my voice so cheerful it felt foreign even to me. Mia, whatever you say. We went last year, and look how great your semester has been. I want to get in on some of that good luck. The flash of pride and contempt in Mia's eyes didn't escape me. She linked her arm through mine affectionately and laughed. What are you talking about? We're best friends. Your good luck is my good luck. If we go together this time, it'll be twice as effective. Twice as effective? No. This time, it's double the payback. That night, I took a half-day leave, using the excuse that my mom wanted me to come home to pick some things up and light an incense stick for my grandmother's ancestral tablet. I caught the last bus back to my hometown. My home was in a small, remote town where my ancestors were once a prominent local family. Although the family had fallen on hard times, an ancient ancestral hall had been preserved and was looked after by a distant great-uncle. The night was dark as I carried a dim lantern into the hall, which smelled of aged wood and old incense. In the main chamber, countless ancestral tablets were enshrined, creating a solemn atmosphere. I bypassed the main hall and went to a corner of a side chamber. There sat a separate censer, jet black and carved with menacing beasts, completely different from the others. This was the Lee family's censer of retribution. According to my grandmother, the incense of retribution burned within wasn't for blessings, but for punishing unfilial descendants who betrayed the family or disgraced its name. The last time it was used was decades ago, when a relative sold out the family's secrets for money and met a miserable end. Since then, the censer had never been lit, but a thin layer of dark gray ash still remained at the bottom. I knelt on the cold floor and kowtowed 3 times before the ancestral tablets. To my ancestors, your unworthy descendant, Chloe Lee, has encountered an evil person who has stolen my luck and ruined my life. I have come today to borrow the ashes of retribution, not to cause senseless harm, but to give her a taste of her own medicine, to make her reap what she sows and see that justice is served. After speaking, I carefully opened the brocade box I'd brought with me and used a small silver spoon to scrape out the dark gray ashes, placing them into a plain little sachet I had prepared. Then, I took some ordinary ashes from the main censer in the central hall and put them into another identical sachet. By the time I returned to my dorm, it was late. I took out the sachet with the ordinary ashes and carefully embroidered a lotus flower on its opening with gold thread, making it identical to the one I gave Mia in my past life. I placed the two sachets side by side in my palm. One held my shattered prayers from a past life, the other held the cold, calculated revenge of this one. Mia, you want good luck? First, you're going to pay back what you owe me, with interest. For the next few days, Mia was unusually attentive. She buzzed around me like a busy bee, playing the part of the perfect best friend flawlessly. Chloe, you have to try this new milk tea I bought. It's your favorite taro boba. She pushed a warm cup into my hand without waiting for an answer, the straw already thoughtfully inserted. Chloe, is this problem a little tough? I just figured it out. Let me walk you through it. She would lean over my desk, using her limited edition fountain pen to sketch out the solution on my scratch paper, her tone a perfect blend of showing off and caring. Chloe, let's go shopping this weekend. I know a store that just got some new dresses that would look amazing on you. Mia would enthusiastically plan our bestie time, as if our friendship were unbreakable. And I perfectly played the part of the slightly slow, naive Chloe from my past life, the one she had so easily wrapped around her finger. I accepted all her kindness, followed her every suggestion, and always wore a grateful and dependent smile. Mia, you're too good to me. What would I do without you? I'd say while sipping the milk tea, looking at her with admiring eyes. Mia, you're so smart. You can solve even the hardest problems. I'd marvel at just the right moments as she explained things. Every time, I could precisely catch the flicker of satisfied superiority and hidden contempt deep in her eyes. To her, I was just a simple-minded stepping stone from a decent family, someone she could easily manipulate. The better I did, the more it proved her kindness and generosity, and the more it would lull me into complacency, making it easier for her to steal from me later. That afternoon, I was at the library doing research when she sent me a text. She said there was an important planning meeting for the student government that night, and she might be back late. She asked me to bring in her clothes from the balcony. I replied, sure, no problem, and went back to my books. This fake friendship was, for me, a play that required my full attention. I had to stay vigilant and not show any cracks in my performance. In the evening, I went to the balcony to get the clothes. Jenna, another one of our roommates, was also there. Jenna was introverted but perceptive. She was usually quiet and kept a polite distance from everyone. As she took her shirt off a hanger, she spoke, as if casually. Chloe, I don't mean to be nosy, but I just think it's a little strange. What is? I asked, folding Mia's dress, which smelled of her expensive perfume. Mia, she seems to be asking other people about you lately. Jenna lowered her voice, a hint of hesitation in it. Like what your family does if your parents are rich, stuff like that. The other day, I went to the cafeteria with her, and she was telling some students from another department that you're her best friend, innocent as a blank slate, and that she'll have to look out for you. My hands paused. In my past life, I'd vaguely heard similar rumors, but dismissed them as jealousy of our picture-perfect friendship. Thinking back now, Mia had been building this naive rich girl persona for me from the very beginning, so she could later attribute all my achievements to her help and guidance. I looked up and met Jenna's worried gaze, my face a mask of confused innocence. You're overthinking it, Jenna. Mia's just looking out for me. We're best friends, you know? She's probably just asking around because she's afraid someone might take advantage of me. Jenna looked at me and opened her mouth as if to say more, but in the end, she just sighed and shook her head. Maybe. Just keep an eye out for yourself. I will, thanks, I said, giving her a genuine smile. After watching Jenna go back into the room with her clothes, the smile on my face slowly faded. Of course I knew what Mia was doing. She didn't just want to steal my luck, she wanted to control me mentally, to turn me into an accessory for her own shining halo. That night, Mia came back from her meeting with a late-night snack for me, sticky rice cakes from my favorite shop. Chloe, you must be hungry. Eat up while it's hot. She pushed the container toward me, acting like the best friend of the year. While I ate the soft, sweet cakes, I spoke in an almost childlike tone, as if I were sharing some incredible secret. Mia, I had a dream last night. I dreamt of an old man with a white beard. He said that if you're sincere, your prayers will be answered, but you can't keep good fortune all to yourself. He said you and I are destined to be best friends, and that I have to share half the luck we get from Serenity Temple with you. I said it all in a mystical, hushed tone, my eyes shining as if I completely believed the dream. Mia froze for a second. Then her eyes erupted with an uncontrollable joy. She probably thought even heaven was on her side, that I, the fool, was initiative offering up my good fortune. She suppressed her excitement, grabbed my hand, and her eyes welled up with emotion. Chloe, you're truly my best friend. Don't worry, as long as I have something to eat, I'll make sure you never go hungry. I nodded hard, my mouth full of rice cake, and mumbled, We'll be best friends for life. For life? Don't be in such a hurry, Mia. Our friendship will be settled, fair and square, very soon. There were no classes that afternoon, so Mia and I took a bus to the town where Serenity Temple was located. The autumn sun streamed warmly through the window. Mia was exceptionally excited, chattering like a bird about to be let out of its cage. Chloe, I checked. The first offering at Serenity Temple starts at 4 a.m. We should get to bed early tonight and wake up at 3. I also heard that when you make the offering, you should silently repeat your wishes. The more specific, the better. I've already decided on mine. I want to get into the grad school recommendation program and win the national scholarship. Oh, right. What are your wishes? Think about them now so you don't forget. I leaned against the window, watching the fields and trees fly by, just smiling and nodding, occasionally adding a word or two. My wishes? My only wish in this life is to watch you fall from grace. We checked into a small inn at the foot of the Temple Mountain. The room was small and simply furnished, with 2 single beds side by side and the air smelling of damp wood. To heighten the tension and realism, I intentionally made this cramped space our stage for the night. After putting down our luggage, I started organizing my backpack, and then casually took out both identical red sachets. I said, feigning surprise. Mia was immediately drawn over. What's wrong? She asked curiously. I held up the 2 sachets and dangled them in front of her, explaining sheepishly, Oops, I brought last year's too. I was thinking the old one still has some of last year's luck in it, so if I add some new ashes this time, maybe it'll be double the luck. See, the one with the darker lotus flower is the old one, and the brighter one is the one I just embroidered. I pointed out the subtle difference between the two, a marker I had left on purpose. The one with the retribution ashes was the new one I had just embroidered, its gold thread more lustrous. Mia's gaze darted between the 2 sachets, the flames of greed dancing in her eyes. She smiled and said, Chloe, you're so thoughtful. The new one will definitely be more powerful, since you made it specially for this trip. I think so too, I said with a firm nod. Then I solemnly placed the new sachet, the one with the retribution ashes, by my pillow, while casually tossing the old one with the ordinary ashes onto the nightstand. I have to keep this one safe. Can't lose it, I said, patting my pillow as if guarding a priceless treasure. The stage was set. At 9 o'clock, we turned off the lights and went to bed early. The inn's walls were thin, we could hear the TV from the next room, and the occasional footsteps in the hallway. I closed my eyes, regulated my breathing, and forced myself into a light sleep, but all my senses were on high alert, like a radar. Time ticked by. I could hear Mia tossing and turning in her bed. She was excited and nervous, like a thief about to commit a crime. Around midnight, the TV next door finally went quiet, and the whole inn fell silent. I felt Mia's breathing beside me become steady, as if she had fallen asleep. But I knew she was waiting. After a long while, so long that I almost really did fall asleep, I heard a faint sound, the creak of a bed spring being compressed. My heart leaped into my throat. I kept my breathing steady and didn't move, but my eyes darted around under my eyelids. Through the sliver of moonlight filtering through the curtains, I saw a blurry shadow slowly sit up in the bed next to me. It was Mia. She moved with the stealth of a cat. First, she listened for a moment to make sure I was sound asleep, then she crept out of bed. The floor was wooden. She was barefoot, each step careful and deliberate. I could hear her heavy, suppressed breathing. She came to my bedside. I could feel her shadow looming over me, smell her familiar perfume. My body tensed instantly, and I almost started trembling uncontrollably. Don't move, Chloe, don't move. This is the most crucial moment. I felt her pause by my pillow for a long time, as if fighting a final battle with her conscience. Then a cold, trembling hand slowly reached for my pillow. Her hand fumbled around, touching the sachet. I clearly heard the soft rustle of fabric. She had it. I could even imagine the look on her face right now. A mix of tension, excitement, and glee at her success. After taking the sachet, she quickly slipped the old one from the nightstand under my pillow, completing the switch without a sound. Once it was done, she scurried back to her bed like a startled rabbit and wrapped herself tightly in her blankets. I remained perfectly still, lying quietly in the darkness, listening to her heartbeat gradually return to normal. A long time later, I slowly, silently curled my lips into a smile. Welcome to my hell, Mia. The die is cast. At 3 a.m., the alarm went off right on time. I sat up in bed, rubbing my sleepy eyes. Beside me, Mia was already wide awake and full of energy, her face flushed with an unnatural glow, as if she could already see the glorious life awaiting her. Chloe, hurry up. We can't miss the first offering, she urged, her voice filled with suppressed excitement. We washed up quickly and, guided by the weak beam of a flashlight, started our trek up the mountain to Serenity Temple in the dark. The path was rough, and the morning wind was cold, cutting like a knife against our faces. I deliberately walked slowly, pretending to be out of breath. Mia kept saying, "Slow down, no rush," but her own pace quickened, leaving me far behind. She couldn't wait to claim her good fortune. By the time I breathlessly reached the summit, the temple gates were just opening. There were only a few other worshippers, but Mia had already secured the very first spot in line for the offering. She turned and gave me a triumphant wave, her eyes seeming to say, "See? I'm the chosen one." At 4 o'clock sharp, the bell chimed, and the first offering began. Mia took 3 incense sticks, each as thick as an arm, from a monk, lit them from a candle, and then respectfully walked to the giant censer, where she knelt, bowed, and placed the incense inside. I stood back in the crowd, watching coldly. The moment the incense was inserted into the censer, something strange happened. Instead of rising in gentle wisps of blue smoke, the tips of the 3 sticks emitted 3 faint plumes of black smoke, which spread out like ink dropped into clear water. The black smoke appeared for only an instant before being scattered by the mountain wind. So fast you might think you'd imagined it. Mia's face turned deathly pale. She stared at the censer in horror, then rubbed her eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just seen. The worshippers and monks around her showed no reaction, everything was normal. She could only chalk it up to a hallucination from waking up so early. She took a deep breath, knelt back down on the prayer cushion, closed her eyes, and began murmuring to herself, her face regaining its pious and greedy expression. I lowered my head to hide the cold smile on my lips. That was no hallucination. That was the incense of retribution telling her, "The reckoning has begun." After the offering, the sky began to lighten. Mia's mood had clearly recovered. She grabbed my arm excitedly. "Chloe, I feel like I'm bursting with energy, full of good fortune. Getting into the grad program is a sure thing for me now." On the way down the mountain, she spent the whole time fantasizing about her wonderful future. And just as she reached a steep slope covered in loose gravel, I accidentally slipped and twisted my ankle. "Ah!" I cried out, falling to the ground. "Chloe, are you okay?" Mia immediately ran over, her face a mask of concern. My ankle. I think I twisted it. It hurts so much." I clutched my ankle, grimacing in pain, tears welling up in my eyes. Mia knelt down to inspect my ankle and frowned. "It looks like it's swelling. What are we going to do? We're still a long way from the bottom." I looked at her pitifully. "Mia, can you help me?" A flicker of obvious annoyance and disgust crossed her face, but was quickly hidden by feigned worry. She said hesitantly, "Chloe, I want to help you, but I'm not very strong, and this path is tricky. What if we both fall? How about this? I'll run down the mountain to get help for you. You wait here, be good and don't move, okay?" Before I could answer, she was gone, running off like the wind. Her brisk pace showed no sign of fatigue from the early morning hike. I watched her retreating back, a coldness spreading through my heart. It was just like in my past life. She left me alone on the mountain. I waited for 2 agonizing hours before a kind worshipper on his way down found me and carried me down the mountain. It was also on that descent that I injured my foot further while dodging an out-of-control electric scooter, leaving me with a permanent ailment. I sat where I was, not moving, just silently counting the time. About 10 minutes later, sure enough, A local villager on an electric scooter appeared around a nearby bend. He was going fast, his scooter laden with goods and wobbling precariously. He seemed startled to see me and slammed on the brakes. In my past life, this was the scooter that swerved to avoid me and tipped over, injuring the driver. But this time, I was prepared. Just as he was about to reach me, I threw myself with all my strength into the grassy patch beside the path. The scooter screeched to a halt, narrowly missing the spot where I had been sitting. The driver looked at me, still shaken. "Miss, are you okay? Why were you sitting in the middle of the road?" "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I twisted my ankle and couldn't move." I apologized quickly, feigning fear. After confirming I was all right, the driver grumbled a few more words and rode off. I climbed out of the grass and brushed myself off. My ankle still throbbed, but I felt an indescribable sense of relief. "Mia, did you think you were leaving a burden behind? You were wrong. You left behind the first disaster of my past life. And now, who will bear the brunt of that disaster?" I took out my phone and called the innkeeper, asking him to send someone to pick me up. As for Mia, I imagined she was busy looking for help and had no time for anything else. We got back to the university on Sunday afternoon. My ankle had been treated and bandaged. Although I still limped, it was no longer a serious issue. Mia didn't return to the dorm until evening. When she saw me, she let out an exaggerated sigh of relief. "Chloe, you're finally back. I was so worried about you," she said, handing me an apple. After I got down the mountain, I looked everywhere but couldn't find anyone to help, and then my phone died. I figured you're so smart, you'd find a way down on your own, so I took the bus back first. "You're not mad at me, are you?" "I'm not mad at you." Exactly the same words as my past life. I took the apple, managing a weak but grateful smile. "Of course not. I know you were trying to help." I ended up calling the innkeeper, and he sent someone to get me. "And thanks for the apple. We're best friends." "Don't be a stranger," she said, patting my shoulder, the pride in her eyes nearly spilling over. In her mind, she had played me the fool once again. Monday morning was a crucial pop quiz for a major course, and the grade would count toward our final GPA. The professor was known for being strict and hated tardiness. In my past life, I performed poorly on the quiz due to my injured foot and gloomy mood. Mia, on the other hand, got the highest score, solidifying her status as a top student. This time, I arrived at the classroom 15 minutes early, leaning on a crutch. I chose a seat in the back and took out my textbook for a final review. The bell rang, and the professor walked in on time, took attendance, and began handing out the papers. I scanned the room but didn't see Mia. Late. That wasn't like her. She was always so demanding of herself, especially for important assessments like this. When the quiz paper landed on my desk, I took a deep breath and began to write. I had done these problems in my past life and had reviewed them repeatedly in this one. They were second nature to me. Time ticked by, the only sound in the room the scratching of pens on paper. Nearly 20 minutes into the quiz, the back door of the classroom was thrown open with a bang. Mia stood there panting, her hair a mess, her face pale, and her forehead beaded with sweat. The entire class and the professor instantly turned to look at her. Professor, she was so out of breath she couldn't form a complete sentence. The professor pushed up his glasses, his brow furrowed as he stared at her coldly. "Mia, you're 20 minutes late. Do you have a reason?" I overslept," Mia stammered, her voice choked with tears. "My alarm didn't go off. I overslept." "Overslept?" The professor's voice was filled with displeasure. "Is that an excuse? Fine. Come in and find a seat in the back." Mia trudged shamefully to the empty seat next to me. Just as she was about to take a pen from her bag, she froze. She frantically rummaged through her backpack, dumping everything onto her desk. Textbooks, a mirror, and lipstick tumbled out, but there was no pencil case. My pencil case is gone," she whispered in despair. The students around her shot her sympathetic looks. Late and without any writing utensils, she was basically screwed for this quiz. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me helplessly. I took a spare pen from my pencil case and handed it to her. "Mia, use mine for now," I said softly. She snatched it like a lifeline, mumbled a grateful thank you, and began scribbling furiously on her paper. But it was too late. There wasn't nearly enough time for her to finish all the questions. When the final bell rang, the professor started collecting the papers. I saw that Mia's quiz was still full of blank spaces. She slumped over her desk, her shoulders shaking as she cried silently. I quietly packed my things and limped past her on my crutch. Back in the dorm, I saw Mia's alarm clock sitting on her bedside table. I picked it up and saw that it hadn't failed to go off. She had set the Monday alarm to ring once and had turned it off the night before. For someone as meticulous as her, such a rookie mistake was almost unbelievable. That afternoon, Mia returned to the dorm, her eyes still red and swollen. She forced a smile when she saw me, but her tone was laced with resentment. It's all because I was so tired from hiking yesterday. That's why I overslept. Some people, on the other hand, twist their ankle and still have the energy to study. You must have done well, huh? Her words were pointed and dripping with sarcasm. I just smiled and didn't respond. Yes, I did do well. And you, Mia, this is just the beginning. Everything you stole from me, I will make you pay back, bit by bit, with interest. Your bad luck has only just begun. The quiz scores were posted quickly. I, unsurprisingly, got a perfect score. Mia, due to being late and leaving much of the test blank, received a barely passing grade. It was the worst she had ever done in her 3 years of college, bad enough to drag down her GPA for the entire semester. The result caused quite a stir in our class. Everyone was whispering, wondering if Mia was going through a rough patch, and how I, a previously average student, had suddenly become so brilliant. Mia barely spoke for days, a dark cloud hanging over her. She stopped asking about my day and looking after me. The occasional glances she threw my way were filled with a complicated mix of jealousy and scrutiny. She couldn't understand why, after returning from Serenity Temple, she was the one having all the bad luck. But she didn't suspect me. In her mind, I was still the simple-minded Chloe she could easily control. She chalked it all up to accidents and bad luck. But the real drama was about to unfold. During the class meeting on Friday afternoon, our academic advisor officially announced the selection criteria and spots for this year's graduate school recommendation program. Our major had 2 spots. The selection was based on 2 factors: the average GPA in major courses and a comprehensive assessment score. The GPA measured academic ability, while the comprehensive assessment included student government work, social activities, competition awards, and more. Each carried a 50% weight. The moment our advisor finished speaking, almost everyone in the class instinctively looked at Mia. She had always been the top candidate for the program. Her grades were consistently at the top. She was an officer in the student government, had organized numerous events, and had a rich portfolio of extracurricular activities. Almost everyone assumed one of the spots was hers. In my past life, that was exactly what happened. She got the recommendation without any trouble, while I, bogged down by a series of accidents and falling grades, had dropped out of the race early on. But now things were different. Mia's face was a little pale. Her failure on that pop quiz was a thorn in her otherwise perfect academic record. While one grade wasn't enough to change everything, it had certainly weakened her once solid advantage. And in the time that followed, I launched my counterattack. I no longer wasted my time on meaningless social events. I turned down all unnecessary gatherings and spent my days either in the library or the study hall. I reviewed, consolidated, and deepened my understanding of the material I had already learned in my past life. My goal was clear: to get the highest score on every upcoming exam and paper, using my academic strength to compensate for my shortcomings in the comprehensive assessment. My transformation did not go unnoticed by Mia. "Chloe, what's up with you lately? You're always in the library. You're turning into such a bookworm," she said one evening, feigning concern. "Getting into the grad program is about consistent effort, you know. Last-minute cramming won't help." Her tone carried a hint of subtle superiority. She didn't believe my last-minute cramming could pose any threat to her. I looked up from my book and smiled at her. I just felt like I hadn't fully grasped a lot of the material, so I wanted to catch up. "I'm still way behind you." My well-timed display of weakness pleased her. She nodded in satisfaction, reverting to her big sister persona, and said condescendingly, "It's good that you're thinking that way. Studying is a step-by-step process. The comprehensive assessment is really important too. You should participate in more activities when you have time. It'll be good for you." She thought I was still the naive little sister who needed her guidance. However, she had no idea that her own consistent effort was starting to fall apart. As the vice president of the student government's arts department, she was in charge of organizing the upcoming welcome party for new students. This should have been a great opportunity for her to boost her comprehensive assessment score. But for some reason, the preparations were plagued with problems. First, the venue they had booked suddenly had a scheduling conflict and had to be changed. Next, a sponsor she had worked hard to secure pulled out due to internal company issues. Worst of all, during a rehearsal for the opening dance she was personally directing, the lead dancer accidentally fell and injured her foot, putting the entire performance at risk of being cut. Mia was suddenly under intense scrutiny from both the faculty and the student government president. She was running around like a headless chicken, as frantic as an ant on a hot pan, with no energy left to even pretend to be nice. Meanwhile, during this time, I completed a course paper on the predicament and future of classical literature in modern communication. I incorporated some observations and thoughts from my past life and proposed several innovative ideas. After I submitted it, the old professor who taught the course specifically praised me in class, saying my paper had a unique perspective and deep insights, and that it was one of the best student papers he had seen in years. That day Mia, sitting in the classroom, looked absolutely livid. Her pride in her academic prowess had been challenged head-on by me for the first time. The tables were quietly turning. She probably hadn't realized it yet, but the seemingly unshakable halo above her head was beginning to crack, and I was stepping out of the shadows, ready to embrace the sunlight that should have been mine all along. The welcome party finally happened, albeit barely. Though the process was full of twists and turns and the quality of the performances suffered, it wasn't a complete disaster. However, the event became the first domino to fall in the collapse of Mia's reputation. After the party, the student government held a debriefing meeting. Several officers vaguely expressed their dissatisfaction with Mia, saying she was headstrong, wouldn't listen to others' opinions, and her first instinct when problems arose was to shift blame rather than solve them. These comments quickly spread through the small circles of our department. The capable, gentle, and easygoing image Mia had carefully cultivated for years was questioned for the first time. But what truly threw her into a vortex of public opinion was an incident on the campus confessions page. To make up for the negative impact the welcome party had on her comprehensive assessment, Mia immediately organized a charity event at a local orphanage. She specifically invited a friend from the campus journalism club to follow her and document the whole thing, planning a major publicity push to restore her reputation. On the day of the event, she wore a pristine white dress and subtle makeup, patiently reading stories to the children and gently playing games with them for the camera, looking like an angel on earth. However, just as the event was about to end, an accident happened. A little boy she had been ignoring, desperate for her attention, started crying and accidentally spilled a cup of juice on her white dress. The bright orange juice left a large, glaring stain. The smile on Mia's face froze instantly. The same thing had happened in my past life. Back then, though she was annoyed, she forced herself to comfort the child gently and won praise from everyone. But this time, perhaps because of her recent string of bad luck, her composure snapped. She shot up from her seat, looked down at her beloved, expensive dress, and blurted out at the 5 or 6-year-old child, "What is wrong with you? Don't you watch where you're going? Do you have any idea how expensive this dress is?" Her voice was sharp, her expression twisted with anger, a stark contrast to her usual gentle demeanor. The little boy, terrified, burst into tears. The orphanage staff were stunned. Although Mia immediately realized her mistake and tried to fix it, it was too late. The entire scene was recorded by a student who happened to be passing by and filming on their phone. That night, a video titled "Shocking. Our School's Perfect Goddess Has Two Faces" was posted anonymously to the school's confessions page and quickly went viral. The video didn't name names, but Mia's recognizable face and her signature white dress made it clear who it was. The comment section exploded. "Oh my God, isn't that Mia from the arts department? She always seems so sweet and kind. I can't believe she's so nasty in private. Getting that angry at a little kid? She has no class. You really can't judge a book by its cover. I always saw her schmoozing everyone in the student government. Turns out it was all an act." Suddenly, Mia was the talk of the campus, but not in the way she ever wanted. The incident acted as a trigger, igniting long simmering resentments. Soon, people started digging up more dirt on her in the comments. Someone said she once took a project someone else worked hard on, changed the name, and presented it as her own. Someone else said that in her freshman year, she copied her roommate's homework for several general education classes. Another anonymous post claimed she had spread rumors about her competitors to get elected to the student government. When someone's down, everyone kicks them. Those she had suppressed, made jealous, or hurt in the past now became crusaders for justice, nailing her to a public pillar of shame. Mia panicked. She used all her connections to try to get the page admin to delete the post, but it was no use. She came to me, crying her eyes out, insisting she had been framed and begging me to believe her and defend her to our roommates and classmates. I looked at her pitiful face, feeling nothing. Of course, I would help her. As she requested, I righteously defended her in our dorm room, saying that Mia wasn't that kind of person, that she was just tired that day, and that everyone was misunderstanding her. However, my explanations were pathetically weak against the mountain of evidence, and they only made our other roommate, Jenna, the one who had warned me before, see Mia's true colors even more clearly. Jenna said to me directly, "Chloe, you're too naive. Some people aren't worth defending. Whose homework do you think she copied? Don't you know? In our freshman year, Mia had indeed copied my homework. At the time, out of consideration for our friendship, I hadn't said anything. Now that Jenna had called it out, I could only lower my head and look hurt and confused. My silence was more powerful than any words. From that day on, the atmosphere in our dorm became strange. Jenna started to subtly distance herself from Mia and grew closer to me. In our class, the friends who used to flock around Mia also began to keep their distance. For the first time, Mia tasted what it was like to be abandoned by everyone. She was no longer the center of attention, but a problematic figure everyone pointed fingers at. Her reputation was in ruins. And it all started with a small cup of juice, with the true, nasty nature that her good fortune could no longer suppress. The string of setbacks threw Mia into a state of paranoia and madness. She no longer believed it was all a coincidence. She started to think someone was intentionally sabotaging her. And her suspicion ultimately fell on me, because I was the sole beneficiary of all these changes. Her grades were slipping while mine were steadily improving. Her social life was in shambles while I, with my quiet demeanor and unwavering support for her, was gaining sympathy and goodwill from our classmates. Most importantly, in the race for the grad school recommendation, the gap between us was visibly shrinking. I was even on the verge of overtaking her. She couldn't understand why the plain, average Chloe she had always looked down on had suddenly become so lucky. So, she blamed all her resentment and frustration on me, convinced that my very existence was jinxing her. She began a frenzied counterattack. She dropped all pretenses of friendship and started targeting and isolating me at every turn. I'd come back from getting water to find my thermos accidentally knocked over. My blanket, hung out to dry on the balcony, would be accidentally dampened. Pages would mysteriously go missing from the books on my desk. These petty, insidious acts, while not causing any real harm, were enough to drive anyone crazy. I didn't confront her. I just silently endured it all, watching and noting her every move. However, when she saw that these minor harassments weren't affecting me, she escalated her tactics and resorted to the most vicious trick of all, spreading rumors. She started whispering lies about me to anyone who would listen. She told people I was secretly manipulative and would do anything to get the grad school spot, that my twisted ankle was fake, just a ploy for sympathy. She said the reason my grades had suddenly improved was that I was secretly paying the old professor, who had praised me for private tutoring. Worst of all, she began inventing rumors about my personal life. She saw me occasionally take a call from an unknown number, and spun a story about how I was being kept by a rich sugar daddy off campus. Haven't you guys noticed? Chloe's been using more expensive skincare lately, and she often goes out alone at night. How can a girl from an ordinary family afford all that? I even saw a luxury car parked at the school gate the other day, and she got out of it. The driver was a middle-aged man. He didn't look like a good guy. These rumors spread like a virus across campus. The jealousy of the girls and the dirty imagination of the guys were the perfect catalysts. Soon, wherever I went on campus, I could feel strange looks directed at me. Those looks were filled with contempt, suspicion, and schadenfreude. The whispers and pointing behind my back were like a constant swarm of flies. Look, that's her. I heard she has a sugar daddy. You wouldn't think so, she acts so innocent. She'll do anything to get into grad school. So disgusting. During that time, I was under immense mental pressure. I felt like I was back in my past life, isolated and misunderstood by the world, on the verge of being swallowed whole. I knew this was Mia's last-ditch effort. She wanted to destroy my reputation completely, to wear me down mentally and physically, until I was too exhausted to compete with her anymore. One evening, I was walking back from the library when I saw Mia standing with a few other girls near the dorm entrance. They stopped talking the moment they saw me, but their undisguised looks of contempt were like poison-tipped daggers aimed right at me. One of the girls said loudly in a snide tone, well, look who's back from her sugar daddies. Had a profitable evening, did we? A wave of laughter followed. I stopped in my tracks, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I didn't react as they expected. I didn't get angry and argue, nor did I run away in shame. I just lifted my head and looked at them calmly, at Mia's face, twisted with triumph. Then I slowly took out my phone and pressed the record button. Mia, you think spreading rumors is your specialty? You're wrong. It's the grave you're digging for yourself. Faced with the storm of rumors Mia had stirred up, I chose the quietest and most lethal form of counterattack: silence and evidence gathering. Arguing publicly would have been foolish. In the face of rumors, any explanation sounds like an excuse, only exciting the malicious gossips further. My job wasn't to silence the masses, but to find the source of the rumors and deliver a fatal blow. I began to operate like a detective, calmly weaving a net of protection and retaliation for myself. First, I needed to prove my innocence. Mia's claim that I had a sugar daddy was based on two pieces of evidence: my more expensive skincare and the occasional luxury car. I had bought the skincare products with money I earned from tutoring. I found all the purchase receipts and payment records from my tutoring job and took screenshots. As for the so-called luxury car, it belonged to a distant uncle. He had recently been transferred to this city for work, and would occasionally swing by the university to see me and bring me snacks from our hometown. I asked my uncle to send me photos of him with my parents and a picture of his work ID. Second, I needed to debunk her slander about my academic life. She claimed I had bribed the old professor for private tutoring. I found every version of the praised paper on my computer, from the first draft to the final copy. The revision dates and my thought process were clearly documented, the best proof of my independent and diligent work. I also went to the library's security office, claimed I had lost an important item, and requested the surveillance footage from the reading room I frequented over the past month. The footage clearly showed me arriving early, leaving late, and studying intensely every single day. Finally, and most crucially, I needed concrete proof of Mia spreading the rumors herself. I started discreetly turning on my phone's voice recorder whenever I was alone with her. I pretended to be completely unaware of the rumors, even asking her for help with schoolwork as I used to. One day, she must have felt her victory was assured, because she dropped her guard around me. We were the only two in the dorm room. I asked her about a difficult problem from a major course. She explained it half-heartedly, then suddenly changed the subject, adopting a "this is for your own good" tone. Chloe, I'm going to tell you something from the heart, so please don't be mad. There are some bad rumors going around about you. I know you're not that kind of person, but a girl's reputation is the most important thing. Have you been hanging out with the wrong crowd? If you're short on cash, you can tell me. I'll lend you some money. Just please don't go down the wrong path. She watched my reaction as she spoke, her eyes full of probing malice. My phone was sitting right under a book on the desk, its recorder quietly running. I lowered my head, my shoulders trembling slightly, my voice choked. Mia, you don't believe me either? I really didn't. My apparent weakness made her drop her defenses completely. Thinking she had hit a nerve, she doubled down, describing in vivid detail all the things she had heard, making the rumors sound like first-hand accounts. I want to believe you, I really do, but several people told me they saw you get into a black Mercedes. Chloe, I know the pressure to get into grad school is immense, but you can't. Every word she spoke was clearly captured by my phone. In addition to this, I contacted the classmate whose homework she had copied in our freshman year. He had always been too timid to speak up. I promised him I would keep his identity anonymous, and just asked him to send me photos of his original manuscript as evidence. After some hesitation, he agreed. All the evidence came together like pieces of a puzzle. I organized the screenshots, photos, recordings, and videos into a password-protected folder. Then, I printed out some of the anonymous material about Mia's academic and student government fraud, and quietly slipped it into the suggestion box outside our advisor's office. I didn't play all my cards at once. This net had to be tightened slowly. I wanted to let Mia have her moment of triumph, to believe she was on the verge of ultimate victory, before I delivered the final, fatal blow. I looked at the folder on my computer named Judgment, and a cold smile touched my lips. The anonymous tip I submitted was like a stone dropped into a calm lake, quickly sending out ripples. While our advisor didn't say anything publicly, he called Mia into his office for a talk the next day. No one knew what they discussed, but when Mia came out, her eyes were red and her face was as white as a sheet, as if all the strength had been drained from her. Clearly, the evidence of her taking credit for others' work and her academic dishonesty had made our advisor seriously doubt her character. And when it came to something like the grad school recommendation, character often mattered more than grades. This incident was the last straw that broke Mia. She completely lost control. That night, I had just finished showering and was returning to the dorm when she blocked my way at the door. Jenna and our other roommate were inside. The atmosphere instantly froze. Mia's eyes were bloodshot, her hair was a mess, and she stared at me like a cornered beast. "Chloe, was it you?" Her voice was hoarse and filled with venom. "Did you write that anonymous letter? Why are you doing this to me?" I looked at her calmly and didn't answer. My silence was, to her, an admission of guilt. She lunged at me, trying to grab my collar. Jenna reacted quickly and pulled her back. "Mia, are you crazy? What are you doing? Let go of me." Mia struggled wildly, pointing a trembling finger at me and screaming hysterically. It was her. It has to be her. Ever since we came back from Serenity Temple, I've had nothing but bad luck, while everything has been going her way. "Tell me, what did you do to me? Do you know some kind of witchcraft?" Her words stunned everyone in the room. "Witchcraft?" I finally spoke, my voice tinged with ridicule and pity. "Mia, have you been reading too many fantasy novels? Stop pretending." Her gaze suddenly fell on the sachet hanging by my bed, the old one with the ordinary ashes that she had swapped. As if discovering a massive secret, she broke free from Jenna, rushed to my bed, and ripped the sachet down, trying to tear it open. "There has to be something in here. You swapped out all my good luck." I didn't stop her. I just watched her coldly, as if watching an ugly clown, and said, word by word, "Mia, all your misfortune comes from your own actions. Instead of having a meltdown here, blaming non-existent witchcraft and a simple sachet, you should take a good, long look at what you've done." My voice wasn't loud, but each word was like a hammer blow to her heart. Her hands froze. I continued, "You were late for the quiz because you forgot to set your own alarm. You lost your temper at the orphanage because of your own arrogance and selfishness. Your reputation is ruined because all the shady things you've done in the past came to light. And what about you spreading rumors that I have a sugar daddy, trying to destroy my reputation? Did I use witchcraft to make you do that, too?" My words made everyone in the room gasp. Jenna and our other roommate looked at Mia with disbelief. The color drained from Mia's face. She hadn't expected me to know about the rumors she'd been spreading. I didn't, you're lying," she sputtered, making a last, desperate attempt. "I'm lying." I scoffed, slowly raising my phone and pressing play. The sound that filled the room was the recording of her in the dorm, advising me with concern, vividly describing how I was supposedly being kept. "I want to believe you, I really do, but several people told me they saw you get into a black Mercedes." The recording echoed clearly in the quiet room, each word a ruthless indictment of her lies. Mia swayed, as if all her strength had left her, and sagged against my bed frame. She stared at me with terror and despair. The endgame was here. She finally understood that the meek, easily bullied Chloe she thought she knew was long gone. "And Mia, how could you say that about Chloe?" Jenna was trembling with anger, pointing at her, unable to form a complete sentence. "We all thought you were our friend, and you were stabbing her in the back like this." Our other roommate looked at her with utter disappointment. "That's disgusting, Mia. We were so wrong about you." She was surrounded. The accusations and contempt washed over her like a tidal wave. She looked at me, her lips moving, but no words came out. Her once beautiful face was now ugly, twisted by jealousy and hate. I knew she wouldn't give up. A person pushed to the brink will do anything. And I was waiting for her final, most desperate performance. The confrontation that night ended in Mia's complete defeat. Amid the scorn and accusations of everyone present, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her, and didn't come back all night. From then on, she became a ghost, haunting the campus alone. She dropped all pretenses, her eyes filled with undisguised venom and hatred whenever she looked at me, as if I were her mortal enemy. I knew she was waiting for an opportunity, a chance to drag me down to hell with her. And that opportunity was the final presentation for the grad school recommendation. The presentation was the final hurdle to determine who got the spots. We had to present our academic achievements and research proposals to a panel of judges consisting of the department head and several key professors. It wasn't just a final test of our academic skills, but also a comprehensive evaluation of our personal qualities. In the preliminary rankings based on GPA and comprehensive assessments, I had already surpassed Mia by a narrow margin, placing second. The top spot was held by a quiet but brilliant male student. This meant the last spot would be decided between Mia and me. The outcome of the presentation would directly determine the course of our lives for the next few years. This was Mia's final, desperate gamble. The presentation was scheduled for Friday afternoon. In the days leading up to it, a tense atmosphere, like the calm before a storm, hung over the campus. Everyone knew this would be a war without weapons. I remained unaffected, calmly preparing my PowerPoint and script. I had further developed the paper that the professor had praised, preparing to make a strong impression at the presentation. Mia, on the other hand, was unusually quiet. This silence before the storm made me even more vigilant. I knew she was plotting something big. The night before the presentation, I saved the final version of my PowerPoint to my USB drive and checked it several times to make sure everything was perfect. Just in case, I also backed up the file to the cloud and my email. It was a lesson from my past life, etched into my very bones. Never put all your eggs in one basket. That night, Mia came back to the dorm very late. Instead of going straight to bed, she sat at her desk for a long time. Pretending to be asleep, I watched her through slitted eyes. She stared at her computer screen with a strange, vicious smile, her fingers flying across the keyboard. My heart sank. I knew it. She was making her move. At 2 a.m, I heard a faint noise in the room. I peeked through a tiny slit in my eyelids and saw Mia slinking out of her bed like a gecko, making her way to my desk. My USB drive was plugged into my laptop. Her movements were practiced. This clearly wasn't her first time doing something like this. She quickly unplugged my USB drive, inserted it into her own computer, and began a series of operations: delete, replace. I saw her drag a file onto my USB drive. After she was done, she plugged the drive back into my computer and crept back to bed. The whole process took only a few minutes. She thought she had been completely stealthy. She thought that tomorrow, in front of all the faculty and students, I would be humiliated when I opened a swapped, obscene file, and I would lose all chance of competing. I lay in the darkness, listening to her ragged, excited breathing, a cold calm settling over me. Mia, your biggest mistake was using your cleverness for evil. This little surprise you've prepared for me. Tomorrow, I will return it to you, in its entirety. It will be the grandest and ugliest performance of your life. On Friday afternoon, the largest lecture hall in our building was packed. The department head and several senior professors sat in the front row, forming a formidable judging panel. The audience was filled with students from our major and underclassmen. The air crackled with tension and excitement. This was our department's most anticipated academic event of the year, and the final judgment that would decide two people's fates. According to the lottery, I was third to present, with Mia right after me at fourth. The first two students gave decent, if unremarkable, presentations. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and walked confidently to the podium. Instead of plugging in my USB drive, I logged into my personal cloud drive and downloaded my PowerPoint file. It was a subtle move, but it guaranteed that what I was about to present was exactly what I had prepared. My presentation topic was the modern reconstruction of classical literature, a case study of online fiction. I used numerous examples and analyzed my points from the perspectives of communication studies, sociology, and more. My delivery was logical and fluent, my PowerPoint was well designed, and my content was solid. The professors in the front row nodded from time to time, their eyes showing approval. After my 15-minute presentation, it was time for questions from the panel. The professors' questions were sharp, but I answered them all with ease, even expanding on some of the deeper implications. When I bowed and left the stage, the hall erupted in applause. I knew I had nailed it. I returned to my seat and calmly looked at Mia, who was about to go on stage. It was her turn. She was meticulously dressed today in a tasteful dress, her face wearing a confident yet humble smile, as if all the recent negative press had nothing to do with her. She walked elegantly to the podium, bowed to the judges and the audience, and then inserted her USB drive into the computer. However, before starting her presentation, she didn't open her PowerPoint. She cleared her throat, a look of apology and hurt on her face, and spoke into the microphone, her voice nearly breaking. Professors, fellow students, before I begin my presentation, I would like to take a moment to clarify something and to apologize to Chloe. The entire hall fell silent. All eyes were on her. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with tears. Chloe, I'm sorry. I know you've been dealing with a lot of unfair criticism because of me, but I never meant to hurt you. We're best friends, aren't we? Her crocodile tears prompted a wave of whispers from the audience. I said nothing, just watched her coldly, waiting for what came next. Sure enough, she changed her tune, revealing her true intentions. But her voice suddenly rose, filled with grief and pain. I never imagined that some people would truly stop at nothing to get this recommendation. Just last night, I discovered that my research draft, the one I spent a whole month working on, the core ideas of my paper, vanished from my computer. And today, I was shocked to find that my missing core ideas were identical to what Chloe just presented. Her words were a bombshell, and the hall erupted. Everyone turned to look at me in shock. Plagiarism at such a crucial presentation was the most damning accusation possible. Seeing she had the effect she wanted, Mia added more fuel to the fire, pointing the finger directly at me. I don't know how my draft went missing, and I can't believe you would do this, Chloe. But the facts are right in front of us. I even suspect that someone secretly accessed my computer last night, not only stealing my work but possibly tampering with my presentation file as well. She acted her part perfectly, tears streaming down her face as if she were the innocent, betrayed victim. The department head's face had turned grim. He looked at me sternly and asked, Chloe, do you have an explanation for this? I stood up, meeting the questioning gazes of the entire room without a hint of panic. I said calmly, Professor, I have nothing to explain, because the truth will speak for itself. I trust the facts will prove everything. Then I turned to Mia and asked, word by word, Mia, are you sure your missing draft is identical to my points? Are you sure someone tampered with your file? Are you also trying to say that someone tampered with my USB drive? My composure caught Mia off guard, but she had gone too far to back down and had to continue her act. She nodded, choking back sobs. I don't know, I just think it's too much of a coincidence. Fine. I nodded, then turned to the judging panel and said clearly, Professors, since Mia has questioned my academic integrity and implied I might have tampered with her file, I request that my USB drive be examined right here, right now, to prove my innocence. My USB drive has been in my laptop since last night and has not been touched. With that, I took my laptop and the tampered with USB drive from my backpack. A flicker of mad joy crossed Mia's eyes. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The department head and the professors exchanged glances and agreed. A staff member took my USB drive and plugged it into the podium computer. All eyes were fixed on the big screen. I looked at Mia, and under her expectant, venomous gaze, I slowly announced a file name. Professor, please open the PowerPoint file named Final Presentation Chloe. The staff member clicked it open. The next second, what appeared on the screen was not the kind of prank file I imagined Mia would prepare, but the playback interface of a video. The video's title was written in bold red font. To my best friend Chloe. The audience gasped again. What was going on? Mia was also stunned. She hadn't expected this. Amid everyone's bewildered gazes, I calmly said to the staff member, Professor, please play the video. The video began. The screen showed Mia's familiar face. She was sitting at her desk in the dorm room, smiling sweetly at the camera. Then she spoke. Chloe, you must be so surprised to see this video, right? It's a special gift I prepared just for you. I know you've always wanted to get the recommendation, but your skills are just not quite there. But don't worry. What are best friends for? So, I've decided to share my research with you. The Mia in the video, in a boastful and condescending tone, detailed how she had discovered that my paper and her draft ideas were mysteriously similar, and how she had generously decided not to pursue the matter, even helping me refine my arguments. Then, the screen changed, and she began to show how she had kindly helped me polish my PowerPoint. She opened my USB drive's directory, deleted my original PowerPoint, and dragged in a new file. The file was blatantly named, "If a pig can get into grad school, why can't Chloe?" She clicked open the file, and the screen was immediately filled with grotesque, photoshopped images of me, paired with various insulting captions. Ha 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 ha. Do you like your gift? Tomorrow, when you open this PowerPoint in front of the entire department, you'll definitely be the center of attention. The entire department. Don't thank me. It's your own fault for getting in my way. At the end of the video, Mia gave the camera an incredibly vicious, twisted smile. The hall was dead silent. Everyone was stunned by the video's content. The truth had been revealed in the cruelest, most direct way possible. On stage, the color drained from Mia's face. She was frozen like a stone statue, trembling uncontrollably. She stared at the screen in disbelief, then at me, making a choking sound, unable to utter a single word. She never dreamed that the trap she had so carefully designed to frame me would be exposed by me in this way. In front of everyone. This was the final judgment I had prepared for her. After the video ended, the lecture hall remained deathly quiet. That silence was more damning than any loud accusation. Every gaze directed at Mia was like a sharp knife, slicing her hypocritical mask to shreds. What is going on here? The department head was the first to react. He stood up, his face livid, his voice filled with suppressed rage. "Mia, do you have anything to say?" Mia's body trembled violently. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her mind was a complete blank. She couldn't process what was happening. She couldn't understand why the file she had swapped last night had turned into a video condemning her. Then I spoke calmly, my voice soft but carrying throughout the entire hall. "Professor, I filmed this video last night with a hidden micro camera I placed on my bookshelf. I held up a small, inconspicuous camera disguised as a decoration. I knew Mia has had some misunderstandings about me lately, and I was worried she might do something irrational, so I took some precautions. I never expected to capture this." My words were the final nail in her coffin. "No, it's not true. It's not like that." Mia finally broke down. She shrieked hysterically, "It's her. She framed me. This video is fake. She faked it." But her denial was pathetic and useless against the ironclad proof of the video, making her look like a sore loser making a final, desperate struggle. Our advisor and a few student government officers quickly went on stage and restrained the hysterical Mia. Our advisor looked at her with utter disappointment. "Mia, you have disappointed me so much. The halls of academia have no place for slander and sabotage. The university will handle this matter seriously." Then he turned to me, his expression softening with apology. "Chloe, I'm sorry you had to go through this. We have all witnessed your excellence. Rest assured, the university will see that you get justice." The farcical presentation ended with Mia being led away for investigation. The dust settled. That evening, the university announced its decision. Due to Mia's malicious slander, sabotage of another student, and other severe violations of academic ethics and school regulations during the graduate school recommendation process, the department had decided to revoke her eligibility for the recommendation, issue a major demerit, and circulate a notice of criticism throughout the department. And I, without a shadow of a doubt, secured that final, precious spot. When the news arrived, I was standing alone on the dorm balcony. The night air was cool, carrying away the clamor of the day. I took out the sachet I had kept, the one filled with the ashes of retribution. I didn't open it. I simply took out a lighter and set a corner of it ablaze. The flames quickly licked at the red satin, turning it to ash. A wisp of smoke rose, carrying a faint, woody scent before dissipating into the night. I spoke silently to the smoke. "To my ancestors, the debt has been paid." In truth, there was no such thing as magical ashes of retribution. The sachet contained nothing more than the most ordinary ashes from the main censer in my family's ancestral hall. It didn't represent some supernatural power, but my own resolve from that moment on, to no longer be weak, to no longer back down, and to fight back. What truly led Mia to her ruin was not some ethereal curse, but the insatiable greed, jealousy, and malice in her own heart. Her own demons, along with the evil deeds she committed with her own hands, brought about this final reckoning. I had only given her a gentle push on her path to the cliff. Cause and effect. It's as simple as that. A gust of wind blew away the last of the ashes. I opened my hand, as if letting go of all the weight and resentment of my past life. From now on, I would no longer be chained to the past. My life was beginning anew. After the grad school situation was settled, my life seemed to switch from a tense battle mode to a peaceful, pastoral one. With the burden of revenge lifted, I felt an unprecedented sense of ease and freedom. I didn't revel in the thrill of defeating my rival, because I knew my goal wasn't to destroy Mia but to reclaim the life that should have been mine and, finally, to live for myself. I used the scholarship I received for getting the recommendation to sign up for a weekend pottery class. I loved the feeling of shaping soft clay on a spinning wheel, molding it with my own hands into the form I desired. The process of focus and creation brought me immense peace and satisfaction. The earthy smell of the clay mixed with the coolness of the water felt like it was washing away all the dust and pain left over from my past life. My first finished piece was a small, rustic-looking pencil holder. I brought it back to the dorm and placed it on my desk. Whenever I saw it, I would remember myself in the pottery studio, sunlight streaming down on me, my hands covered in clay, smiling. I also started using my spare time to explore the city on my own. I was no longer cooped up in the dorm or the library. I'd grab my backpack and my camera and set out to discover the city I had lived in for 3 years but never truly known. I visited old alleyways and watched pigeons circle over gray-tiled roofs. I went to the avant-garde art district and stood before bizarre and wonderful installations. I hiked in the forest park on the outskirts of the city, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves on the yellow-carpeted trails. I started keeping a travel journal, recording everything I saw, heard, and felt. I found that when I shifted my focus from hatred and scheming to the wider world, my heart also became more open and full. During this process, I also began to actively make new friends, no longer passively accepting the social circle Mia had curated for me, but seeking out people who were genuinely like-minded and brought positive energy into my life. In my pottery class, I met a design student who taught me to appreciate the beauty in life's small details. At a literature salon, I met a PhD student studying modern poetry. We would often argue heatedly over the interpretation of an image, yet we held a mutual respect for each other. My world was no longer just about Mia, no longer colored by just hatred. It became vibrant and full of new, wonderful possibilities. Jenna and my other roommate also became my true friends. We would eat together in the cafeteria, go to class together, and chat about gossip and our futures. That easy, natural friendship, one that required no pretense or defense, was a warmth I had never experienced in my past life. One weekend afternoon, the sun was perfect. I was sitting in a hanging chair on the balcony, sipping herbal tea and talking to my mom on the phone. "Mom, I got into the grad school program," I said with a smile. On the other end of the line, my mom's excited, slightly incoherent voice came through. "Really? That's wonderful. That's wonderful. My daughter is the best." I knew it. Listening to my mom's proud and relieved words, my eyes grew misty. In my past life, I had dropped out sick, causing them endless worry and giving them gray hairs. In this life, I could finally make them proud of me. "Mom, when winter break comes, how about I use my scholarship money to take you and Dad on a trip down south?" "Yes, yes, yes. Your dad and I are ready to enjoy the fruits of our daughter's labor." After hanging up, I looked out the window. Golden sunlight poured through the glass, bathing me in its warmth. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The air itself seemed to smell sweet. I felt a sense of peace and happiness that came from deep within, something I had never felt before. The past, filled with darkness and hatred, was finally buried by my own hands. I no longer needed to defeat anyone to prove my worth, nor did I need to live in someone else's shadow. I was living in the sun. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a year had passed. I successfully completed my undergraduate studies and was admitted with honors to our university's graduate school, studying under the titan of classical literature research whom I admired most. At the opening ceremony for the new academic year, I was invited to speak on stage as a representative of the outstanding graduate students. This was a scene I wouldn't have dared to dream of in my past life. I stood at the brightly lit podium in a tasteful beige suit dress, facing thousands of young, eager faces full of hope for the future. My gaze swept over them, and I was filled with emotion. I shared my study experiences and my thoughts on university life. I said, "In our 4 years of college, we not only learn knowledge but also learn how to understand ourselves and how to navigate the world. Always be kind. but be sure to bring your edge. Always believe in hard work, because it's the one thing that will never let you down. My speech was met with round after round of warm applause. As I bowed and prepared to leave the stage, my eyes unintentionally glanced toward the exit at the back of the auditorium. A middle-aged couple stood there. Their faces were etched with a weariness and sorrow that was completely out of place in this celebratory atmosphere. Their hair was graying, their clothes were simple, and their eyes held a look of shame and confusion. I recognized them. They were Mia's parents. In my past life, I had seen them once at a parent-teacher conference. They were so proud and full of life then, bursting with pride for their daughter. Now they looked so old and broken. I soon heard from Jenna what had happened to Mia. After receiving a major demerit from the school, she became infamous on campus. Her former friends avoided her like the plague, and the professors lost all trust and patience with her. Under the immense pressure and humiliation, her mental state deteriorated. She failed several of her remaining classes and ultimately couldn't even get her diploma, forced to withdraw from the university. Her parents must have been here to handle her final departure procedures. Our gazes met for a brief moment. Their eyes held a complex mix of emotions, resentment, unwillingness, but mostly a sense of helpless resignation. I didn't look away. I simply met their gaze calmly and openly, then gave a slight nod. It wasn't a provocation, nor was it pity. It was just an ordinary, polite gesture between strangers. Then I turned around, walked off the stage, and returned to my seat. We were worlds apart now. Her life was ruined by one wrong step, and she was now stuck in the mire she had dug for herself. And I, after surviving the hell of my past life, had finally broken free from all shackles and welcomed my own radiant, new beginning. After the opening ceremony, my advisor stopped me and handed me a folder. "Chloe, this is an exchange program to a top university abroad for 1 year. I think you have a lot of potential, and I'd like to recommend you for it." I took the heavy folder and looked at the unfamiliar text and school crest on it. My heart began to pound uncontrollably. My future wasn't an end point. It was just beginning.